Good evening, grave robbers, and welcome back to the television graveyard. We are your TV necromancers, Laura Prince and Noah Houlihan. We have come here tonight to examine the spirits of past television shows, to find out which ones could be resurrected, should be resurrected, and which ones should just stay doomed. This is a podcast in which we'll analyze the history, the hype, and the aftermath of shows that ran only one season or only one episode. With me, as always, is TV's Noah Houlihan.
Cartoon.
I feel like that's the weirdest choice you could have made, because people are going to think we're going to do a cartoon.
I panicked. Okay, I panicked.
So, this is going to be an odd episode, team.
So this was kind of requested in our Discord. Because one of our Discord grave robbers simply posted a music video of the Smashing Pumpkins and said, "I'm so confused. Was this what the 90s were?"
They posted specifically the Tonight video. Which I then kind of actually my way in there and pointed out that was actually based on a 1902 film called A Trip to the Moon.
Yes.
And so everything is very turn of the century and Victorian era.
Yes. But that got us talking about what it was like to be in the 90s and live through the 90s, and we got all nostalgic. And
well, the punchline to that story...
Yes.
Is how I know that.
How do you know that? Pop-up
video.
Yes.
The most 90s thing I can think of.
Yes.
So I thought that was very funny that it ended up being very 90s coded, why I knew that.
Yes. And so we thought we'd look back at the 90s, give our reactions of what it was like to be in the 90s, talk about the things that don't exist anymore, the things that are doomed, and if they should stay doomed or make returns, and just kind of break down our feelings towards an entire decade of
Stay tuned.
Thank you so much for listening. So actually, I do have a little thing I want to start with, if that is quite all right.
Sure.
Because we just covered Dick Tracy.
Yep.
And to get ready for that episode, I went back and I watched 1990 Dick Tracy, the film.
Yes.
And it is very much a 90s film. Of like very clear cut, this is a good guy, this is a bad guy. Lots of like bright colors and like practical effects. And I found out something kind of interesting that I wanted to share. Because I was wondering, like, why haven't we ever seen Dick Tracy again? Like, where did Dick Tracy go? I have the answer for you. The original Dick Tracy film was made with Disney.
Yes.
And Disney didn't really want to do it.
Right.
Do anymore. But Warren Beatty did.
Yes.
Warren Beatty super wanted to do more Dick Tracy. And other people came in and tried to get the rights from Disney. And Warren Beatty was like, well, if this other company comes in and wants to do something with Dick Tracy, they're going to recast him.
Yeah.
So the exclusive rights to Dick Tracy are owned by Warren Beatty.
Who's going to sit on them until he dies.
Warren Beatty reprises the role of Dick Tracy once every 14 and a half years to keep the rights to Dick Tracy.
That's wild.
There are, in fact, 2 projects where you can see Dick Tracy. And they are these weird late-night interview shows where they interview Warren Beatty, and then Warren Beatty leaves and comes back and is Dick Tracy and fields questions about being Dick Tracy. So he can legally say he did something with the character and keep the rights.
That's wild.
Yes.
Hi, I'm Ben Mankiewicz, and you're watching TCM, where we're spending the night with Detective Dick Tracy, who made his debut in the funny pages, as he calls them, in 1931.
Detective Tracy, so nice to finally meet you. I'm honored.
Thank you. I'm honored to meet you.
As you can see, I'm sitting here with Leonard Maltin.
Good to see you, Detective Tracy. It's been a while. It has indeed, yes.
The 90s was very much the Wild West of television. Because cable was still kind of new.
Yes, it was not uncommon to grow up in the 90s and have only some of your neighborhood or only some of your friends had cable.
Yes. Or they only had basic cable and didn't have the extended. Or if you were really rich, you had HBO, which was, it's not TV, it's HBO.
Yeah, I did not have HBO until I was considerably older.
We had HBO for a while, and I remember my dad rubbing it in people's faces. Like, oh, you don't have HBO? We can come over to my house and watch boxing. And then we had to switch back to basic cable, and I couldn't watch wrestling anymore, and I was very sad. In any case, with the invention of cable television, there were now all these new networks that didn't know how to do television yet.
Yes. And we were also seeing the end of TV going off the air at night. Mm-hmm. But you would see often these split networks.
Yes.
I think the most popular one would be Nickelodeon splitting with Nick at Night.
Yes.
Or nowadays Cartoon Network and Adult Swim technically are counted differently in the ratings.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Interesting. There was also Cinemax and Skinemax. Because when I was probably in like 8th or 9th grade. Now, probably earlier than that, like 6th grade. We got the Super Box, which got you all the cable channels. So we had Cinemax, we had Showtime, we had Stars, we had Encore. And I remember watching Ace Ventura: When Nature Calls. And then at 10 o'clock, it switched over in the middle of the film. I was watching with my grandmother.
Oh. Oh, no.
Yeah.
Oh, no.
So, let's I guess open the box with TV. That's what we do here.
Yeah.
And I think the 90s were peak karate television.
What?
Well, you had the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
Okay, and then Mighty Morphin Power Rangers.
And then Power Rangers. And you guys need to understand.
Big Bad Beetleborgs, VR Troopers.
Yes, the insanity of how popular the Mighty Morphin Power Rangers was. And then they just made a bunch more that were just the same show.
Biker Mice from Mars.
Yeah.
Samurai Pizza Cats. Street Sharks.
Yeah, those were the rip-offs of the Ninja Turtles. But, like, just to go through Power Rangers. The next one that came out was VR Troopers, which was, like, basically the same thing, except it had something to do with virtual reality.
Countdown control. 4, 3, 2, 1. VR.
Then there was the Big Bad Beetleborgs, which were about kids who were granted power from a comic book thanks to a ghost in a haunted house.
3 typical average kids love to read their comic strips. Got their wish and they became the Big Bad Beetleborgs. Big Bad Beetleborgs. Big Bad Beetleborgs.
And the ghost is deeply weird looking.
Yes, he's an Elvis / Jay Leno type.
Half Elvis, half ghost.
And there was also a fourth one that I remember watching before school where they would enter a computer by playing musical instruments.
A freak accident turns Sam Collins into Servo. His friends join forces in their samurais attack vehicles. Together they transform into the Superhuman Samurai Cyber Squad.
Superhuman Samurai.
Huh.
They're like, oh, we got to go in there and stop them. And then they'd be in like a Zord of some sort.
Yes, because this was also the time where there were 3 main times for a kid to watch TV.
Yes.
There was Saturday morning. Mm-hmm. There was after school. And there was before school.
Yes.
Which I feel like is the one everybody kind of forgets about.
Yeah, like what was that one thing that you were watching when you were getting dressed?
Because, like, everyone I know watched something while they were getting ready for school.
Yeah. And I remember I watched a lot of Pokemon before school. I also had a little sister, so I watched a lot of JJ the Jet Plane.
Huh.
Which was an anthropomorphic plane with a human face.
JJ the jet plane. That's me.
Do you not remember JJ the Jet Plane?
I remember JJ the Jet Plane. It was just the way you described it was accurate, but also terrible.
And I think, like, we were coming out of the 80s, where in the 80s, a G movie was for babies, and a PG movie was an insane film. Like, people did cocaine in PG movies before the birth of PG-13.
I mean, G movies were not for babies at that time. G was general audience.
General audience, you're right.
Like, all of the Disney movies were rated G. A lot of movies were rated G.
Yes.
And really, you could kind of assume G was appropriate for most kids.
Yeah.
But, like, if you were 3 and you got scared of something in a G movie, that's what you get. Learn.
Yeah.
Speaking from experience, are you afraid of Chernabog from Fantasia? That's what you get. Learn.
Mm-hmm.
And now, like, there are so few G-rated movies now.
Yes. So, in the 90s, there was this turn of them actually making stuff for kids. Not just general audiences that, like, kids and adults can enjoy this. Like, this is a kids program. And in the beginning, they didn't know how to do that correctly. And a lot of insanity got through.
Yeah.
I remember the day that Nickelodeon started producing their own series of cartoons. The 3 original Nicktoons, which were Rugrats, Doug, and Ren and Stimpy.
Yes.
Ren and Stimpy was an insane thing to show to children.
It was one of the only things that was eventually taken... I was allowed to watch nearly anything. It's one of the only things that ever got taken away from me as a kid.
Yeah, it was banned in my home as well. And, like, one of my earliest memories, like, I remember being so excited for the Nicktoons, and then seeing my cousin who missed them. And they're like, were the Nicktoons good? And I was like, Rugrats is funny, Doug's pretty good, and Ren and Stimpy is just flashing colors. Because it was so overstimulating that I had not, like, retained anything from it. And, like, because it was, like, super gross. Like, there's a lot of, like, snot in it and screaming. And whenever Ren would scream, the screen would flash red and things like that. I found it very overwhelming.
I just remember my mom thought it was stupid.
It's a very stupid show.
Because I think all she knew about it was Happy, Happy, Joy, Joy.
Happy, happy, joy, joy. Happy, happy, joy, joy.
Yes.
So that was the only thing she really knew. So it was fine that I watched it. And then one day, like, I think my father watched an episode. Because this would be what happened anytime something was actually banned, was I had been watching it for some time. My dad got around to watching it, and then suddenly I was no longer allowed to watch things. This was South Park, and Austin Powers International Man of Mystery, which I had seen no less than 11 times when it was taken away.
Oh, yeah.
So I don't know what that helped.
Yeah, baby. I was a big Austin Powers
That was my
fan
favorite movie when I was 9.
Yeah, it's a great film. It's funny. But to go back to, like, Happy, Happy, Joy, Joy, which is, like, the iconic Ren and Stimpy episode. It is, like, do you remember what that episode's about?
No.
All right, let me break this down to you guys. Ren is so upset all the time that Stimpy invents the Joy helmet. And it's a helmet that makes you happy. It forces you to be happy. But, like, there is this kind of, like, sinister undertone that, like, Ren's a prisoner in this helmet.
Yeah.
Because he can't be himself. He can only be happy. Oof. And then they sing the Happy, Happy, Joy, Joy song, which, if you don't know, is about a murder.
No, I didn't.
Because most people know the lyrics of like, happy, happy, joy, joy, happy, happy, joy, joy. And that's repeated like a bunch of times. To the point where people think it's the only lyrics. There's other lyrics in there that are like,
I told you I'd shoot, but you didn't believe me. Why didn't you believe me?
and then Ren bashes his head in with a hammer to free himself from the helmet.
Oh.
Like, this is what we were watching on Nickelodeon.
You know what's funny? Because you know what one actually haunts me?
No, what?
Rugrats.
Really?
We're older now.
Yeah.
And we have friends with children Tommy
Right.
Pickles' age.
Yes.
So now I can contextualize, really, what is a 1-year-old? What is a 2-year-old? I'm going, oh no.
Yeah.
The Pickles should have been thrown in jail for negligence.
Yeah.
Like, oh, they were bad parents.
Yes. It's also weird that, like, they're supposed to be, like, 30.
Yes.
Like, Dee Dee and Stu Pickles are 30 years old. It's insanity. So this was, like, when they were first trying to, like, we're going to make stuff for kids. And the Saturday morning block was such an interesting time because it was such a harsh competition.
Yes.
Because there was the ABC block, which eventually became One Saturday Morning.
But it didn't start out as One Saturday Morning.
It didn't start out as that. It was kind of just all the ones that you would see in Cartoon All-Stars to the Rescue. So
Yes.
It was like Muppet Babies. It was Ninja Turtles were in that one. There were... I think Where's Waldo showed up for a little bit in there. I was a big Where's Waldo nut.
Where's Waldo? Where's Waldo? Did you say him, Paul?
And then there was the Fox Kids block.
Yes. Which was a banger.
Yes, because they had Animaniacs. No, they didn't have Animaniacs. They had Tiny Toons, but that eventually moves. They had Eek the Cat, which was a purple cat that got tortured a lot. Like,
Yeah.
horrible things would happen to Eek the Cat. But they had Batman the Animated Series.
Yes, which was super interesting because Batman the Animated Series actually got its start in prime time.
Did it?
Yes, Batman the Animated Series was attempted to be on, I believe, the WB. And ran a little bit in prime time.
Because I remember the Fox Kids block, like, in the very beginning being Tiny Toons, Animaniacs, Batman the Animated Series.
Yes.
And then I believe all those shows end up on the WB.
Yes, they do.
And the WB's kid block was, like, super good.
Yeah.
That's where they got Big Bad Beetleborgs, Animaniacs ended up being over there, Freakazoid.
That whole, like, Amblin Entertainment,
Yes.
like, block. That Freakazoid, Pinky and the Brain, Animaniacs, and then some of the later ones, like Hysteria and Detention,
Yes.
which I think are 90s, but only just.
Yes.
I mean, I think these are fall 99. I think Detention is fall 1999.
That sounds about right.
But they also had Pokemon.
They also had Pokemon. Also, one of my favorite shows that seems to have been lost to time, Earthworm Jim.
Oh, yeah.
The video game had its own cartoon.
He's such a groovy guy. He rockets through the sky, cruising through the universe, having lots of fun. Here comes Earthworm Jim, you know that he's a mighty one.
And it was really weird. Professor Monkey for a head, and Queen Slug for a butt, and Evil the cat. But, like, it was weird. It's a kid's cartoon about an earthworm with a gun.
Yes.
Like, his catchphrase was eat dirt, and he would just fire a gun.
Was that his catchphrase?
Eat dirt. Yes,
Okay,
'cause
that's-
he's a worm.
That's not the catchphrase I think of with Earthworm Jim.
Oh.
Groovy.
He did say groovy a lot.
I always think of groovy. Yeah, that was... Kids WB probably had the best one.
Yes.
Fox Kids did have a lot of, like, all-timers, though, because Fox Kids also had X-Men, the animated series.
Yes.
And Spider-Man, the animated series.
Yes.
And I remember they did run Mighty Morphin Power Rangers on Saturday mornings with the cartoons.
Mm-hmm.
Bill Nye was, like, the first thing on that block.
Yes.
Bill Nye would air at, like, dawn.
Yeah, I have a lot of memories of getting up stupid early on a Saturday morning to watch Beakman's World.
Yes.
Which was, I believe, prior to Bill Nye. It was like a scientist in like a green lab coat. And like he had a female assistant and a lab rat who was a man in a giant like rat costume.
In a giant, not great... You know what's funny? It's probably one of the least disturbing men in a giant rat costumes conceivable.
Yeah.
Because they don't try that hard. Mm-hmm. Like, even as a child, you're like, that's a guy in a rat costume.
Yes.
They don't try, like, prosthetics and makeup to make it look good. He's wearing, like, a nose and has, like, drawn-on whiskers.
Yes. And I remember the bit was no one was watching that show. Because it was always started by two penguins in Antarctica being like, this is the only channel we have.
Flip the tube on there, will you, Herb?
Oh, there's never anything new on TV, Don.
Hey, at least we can warm our feet by it.
And watching Beakman's World.
I mean, I will say ABC in the 90s, pre-One Saturday Morning, did have a lot of bangers.
Yeah.
I mean, they had Addams Family. They had Beetlejuice.
Garfield and Friends.
They had Bump in the Night. They actually had a lot of, like,
the
creepy
claymation
ones.
thing.
Yeah.
Yes.
They went a little horror, believe it or not.
My name is Mr. Bumpy. I go bump in the night.
My name is Mr. Bumpy, he goes bump in the night. My name is Mr. Bumpy, I go bump in the night.
Wow.
So, yeah.
Shook that loose recently.
But they had a lot of those, like... They tended to be like, ooh, we're the creepy one. Ooh.
Yeah.
Because they did air Goliath Chronicles, the Gargoyle spinoff.
I wasn't a Gargoyles guy.
I was such a Gargoyles girl. But yeah, they ran a lot of those, like, ones we know existed, but you don't remember when it aired. Mm-hmm. And then they later transferred into One Saturday Morning.
Yes.
Which I think is the more iconic lineup.
Yeah. Gave you Recess, Pepper Ann, the
Doug reboot.
The Doug reboot of The Weekenders or something?
The Weekenders, I want to say, was a little bit later.
That sounds...
Because I think I was not... Weekenders and Rocket Power are the same show to me, and I didn't like either of them.
Yeah, I did not care for those. So that's what was going on for kids. Did you have anything more about kids before I move on to sitcoms?
I think also Cartoon Network...
Yes.
Starts to pick up kind of in the late 90s. It's existed, but they hit their three originals of Johnny Bravo, Dexter's Lab, and Powerpuff Girls. Mm-hmm. And those take off.
Yeah.
And every New Year's Eve, they would do the What a Cartoon Countdown. And all day, you would watch every original cartoon ranked. And you knew that the top 3 or 4 were likely to actually, like, get shows.
Yeah.
So you wanted to watch to the end because you wanted to know what was going to get a show.
Yeah, what's new. Yeah, Cartoon Network is a very interesting network because I remember they would do a lot of, like, really weird things. I remember June Bugs, where they would just show Bugs Bunny for a month.
Yeah.
That's insane. In terms of live action, though, we also had, like, Clarissa showing up and like Pete and Pete, which were like cool to see, like kids be kids.
Yes. The Salute Your Shorts, Hey
Yes.
Dude. Like those were, because I remember my favorite show and I don't remember much about it, but I really loved Roundhouse.
Yes. Because that was the drug that they gave us called Snick. Because Nickelodeon ended at 8 o'clock, except for Saturdays. Then you get your Saturday Night Nick or Snick, which was, let's see if I can still do this. All that, Roundhouse, Ren and Stimpy, and Are You Afraid of the Dark?
When life gets you so down, you know you can go down to where the music and the fun never ends. I can't believe I still remember that. Because that show vanished.
Yes, this is the one thing I can remember about Roundhouse. It was a sketch comedy group that would do kind of like these goofy sketches based around like a weird, loose theme.
Yes.
So it wasn't really like telling a story. They were just kind of like doing funny things.
Yeah.
They always had like a dad character who had like a remote control recliner that he was in. That was like the big set piece they had. But literally, the only joke I remember is they did a whole episode explaining every holiday.
Yes, happy holidays.
And so it was like, instead of doing holiday specials, like this is every holiday. And there's a moment where this white girl walks up and goes, the next holiday is Valentine's Day. And two black guys come around and stare at her. And she goes, correction, the next holiday is Martin Luther King Day. And then they walk away. And she goes, then it's Valentine's Day. And I was like, that's racial humor.
I mean, let me give you a list of the season 3 titles of Roundhouse.
This had 3 seasons?
4. But 3, I think, gives you the best view. Happy Holidays. Women versus Men.
Okay.
Gang Violence.
Whoa!
Jealousy. Talent. Rock Stars. Greed. Prejudice. The Generation Gap. Puberty. Privacy. Self-esteem. The Joke's on You. Running Away. And Lies.
Wow.
Probably after we're done recording, I'm going to try to find an episode of Roundhouse.
Yeah, we're going to either watch Roundhouse or Beakman's World. Because we're shaking loose all these memories that we have up in our head here. And speaking of memories, watch this little magic trick. Right?
There's legitimately some very good quality Roundhouse on... I found restored and remastered Roundhouse.
Excellent. But ready, watch this, because this is going to lead right into my next point. A lot of these shows were also presented on Nick in the Afternoon, presented by Stick Stickily.
Could you contact Stick Stickily in any way?
Yes, Laura. Do you know how?
I do.
How would you do such a thing?
You would write to him.
How? Write to me, Stick Stickily, P.O. Box 963, New York City, New York State, 10108. 10108.
Simmer down.
So, what was interesting about this time is there was interaction with television, but there was no internet. So, they didn't want to clog up the phone lines, but they would do things with the phone on occasion. It was a lot of writing postcards.
Yes.
And that's why...
Do you remember what a SACE was?
A SACE.
A self-addressed stamped envelope.
Oh, yes.
Because you had to send those to everybody to get anything.
Yeah, because
out of anybody.
You had to mail something to them and the envelope that they would send something back to you in.
Yes.
That was the whole concept, because they're not paying the 32 cents for a stamp. That's what stamps cost back then. And, like, do you remember the one for Zoom?
No.
box 350. Boston Ash.
03134. Send it to Zoom. That's how things worked, was like, and the idea of like entering a contest and stuff was all done through postcards.
Yes.
And I remember they then did a show called You to You, where you could call in live on the show.
Yes.
And that was like mind-blowing as a child. And I remember they would be open for like 3 minutes during the show. You would call in. And I got through once, and it was like, you're not the chosen caller, but you can leave a voicemail, and maybe it'll be played on the show. And then after those 3 minutes, it would say, the phone lines for You to You have now been closed. Please call back when the show is airing. And I would just call it randomly in the hopes, like, maybe it's on right now and I don't know.
Oh my gosh.
And I would just constantly call in You to You.
That's kind of sad.
Yeah, I was a sad kid.
Oh.
I really wanted to be famous, and I really wanted to be on TV. So this was the only way to do it, because we didn't have YouTube.
I know there was also... the other one I can always remember with the phone was Nick or Treat, which we're not going to talk about too much because I think we discussed
We did a
it.
whole episode
Yes.
on Nick giveaways.
So we're not going to talk about that
I think is live on our channel. It might be a Patreon only still.
Ooh.
So maybe I'll leak that onto the YouTube sometime in the near future, because we're going to go on hiatus at some point.
Yeah.
Do you want to move on to movies?
Yeah.
Okay. So, in the 90s, it was the peak for children. Films where children hurt adults.
Oh, you could not 2 months went by, my friends, where a film did not come out where a kid would hit a male villain in a low blow.
Oh, yes. And it was always just like, man, adults bad, kids amazing, and kids causing absolute trauma to adults, and it being the funniest thing in the world. Like, off the top of my head, you had the Home Alone films. Mm-hmm. You had Baby's Day Out, which was just a baby walking around while criminals tried to kidnap him and kept getting hurt. Problem Child? Mm-hmm. Remember Problem Child?
Yes.
Like, there are some really horrific things that kid does.
Dennis the Menace. Matilda. The rare female example.
Yes. Mr. Nanny, where they torture Hulk Hogan, who's just trying to be a good nanny. It was, and like, I want you to understand, Hulk Hogan gets electrocuted in that film.
Yeah.
In Problem Child, the child super glues a hockey mask onto someone. Like, truly horrible things you should not repeat.
I mean, Matilda does full psychological torture on her principal.
Yeah.
Who deserves it? But, like, full psychological torture.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was a very big trope, was kids versus adults. Because I'm thinking of Matilda, because that was one of my favorite films. It was my favorite book growing up, so I was obviously first in line for the movie. Like, I'm right, you're wrong. I'm big, you're little.
Yeah.
And that being really the attitude of kids' movies in the 90s. Mm-hmm. Of, like, adults are mean to us, but we can be mean back and we can win. Because even in smaller examples like the Addams Family films,
yeah,
Wednesday consistently got the drop on adults, even if she wasn't physically harming them.
Yeah.
Kids were always smarter than adults.
Yes.
Even in things where adults were not physically harmed, kids were always way smarter.
Yeah.
I'm thinking of like your Hocus Pocuses, where like the adults are drunk and dancing.
Yeah.
And the kids are the ones trying to solve the witch issue.
The witch issue. There's also a series of films I have to bring up because they're very 90s, and that is the Ernest films.
I do not have the
P.
best memory
Worrell.
of those.
So
I was afraid of the intro to Ernest Scared Stupid.
Ernest Scared Stupid scared me legitimately as a child.
And so I never watched another Ernest, because what if it was Scared Stupid again?
What if you thought it was Ernest Goes to Africa? Which, go ahead and look up that poster if you want to feel a little uncomfortable.
Loudly typing, so you know I'm doing it.
Ernest Goes to Africa.
Oh, that's blackface.
Yeah.
Oh, no. Oh, that's 1997.
Yeah.
That's...
It's like the last one.
I don't know why I just assumed it would be 1990 and barely here. Like, I was like, oh, this was like made right after Soul Man, right? Right? Oh,
no.
God, he's in... Oh, that's... Oh, no.
But Ernest was this wacky character that was meant to sell things.
Yes.
Like, I want you to imagine this, okay? Probably one of the most famous commercials right now is Flo from Progressive.
Yeah.
Or, like, the Geico Gecko, probably, are, like, the biggest, like, icon selling things. Imagine if Flo also just showed up to sell you ice cream.
Burning! Hey, burn! Hey, burn! I'm trapped in here with all this purity ice cream. don't send help.
Yeah.
One day. It was just like, yeah, I'm also a big fan of Ben and Jerry's. That's what Ernest P. Worrell was. He would show up and sell ice cream, and then he would sell, like, siding for your house, and then he'd be like, oh, if you're having brake trouble, check out this mechanic.
Hey, Vern, look what my brother-in-law just got down at Tyson's Toyota, Vern. A brand new Toyota Supra. A dream machine. Sexy, too, ain't it? Hey, listen, Vern, why don't you go in the house and get you on some long pants and some of that musk oil, and me and you will go out and find us some action. What do you say?
That's what Ernest P. Worrell did. And he did it so well that they gave him like 8 movies. He went to camp. He went to prison. He saved Christmas. He became a basketball star in Slam Dunk Ernest. He went back to school. He went to Africa. He was scared stupid. And that's 7. And I said 8. And I'm upset with myself that I couldn't get another one.
I mean, he also did the Splash Mountain special.
Yes, the Splash Mountain special. 8. But he was just a dumb guy that wore denim and a hat. And in pretty much every movie except for Goes to Jail, he's surrounded by kids who are smarter than him.
Yes.
And while he's got like a heart of gold, he's always doing things that like end with him getting hurt.
Yeah.
Like he'd stand by a window and the window would close on his fingers and things like that. And it was funny because Adulton paid. I love the Ernest movies.
They were never my thing.
They're not good. They're not good. We can watch all of them if you want.
No.
Oh, we can.
No, I want to watch Roundhouse.
Okay.
I found like 2 seasons of Roundhouse, man. Not any of the ones whose titles I read off, unfortunately.
Oh, unfortunate.
So, however, I found them all. I found Roundhouse gang violence.
Great.
But I think the 90s were the peak of cross promotion in movies.
That's exactly what I wanted to talk about next.
Because I want you to understand, friends, that you didn't need to go to the movie theater to know what the big movies were going to be. You didn't need to go to the toy aisle, even. I mean, if you did, you definitely knew.
Mm-hmm.
But they would do so much cross-promotion of, like, particularly chips and soda.
Yes.
Like, the soda cans... It's funny because Coke still kind of tries to do it. They did the Marvel cans this year, but they weren't connected to a film. But I remember Pepsi doing cans for both the special editions and episode 1 across all of their brands.
Yes. And, like, a lot of contests. Like, I remember with Star Wars, especially, you would open your bottle of Pepsi and you would hope that a Star Wars character was written on the bottle cap, because you won a prize if it did. Because I remember our big joke in school was, I got the new Star Wars character, please try gone. Which was please try again.
Oh.
And that was our big joke. And there was also, like, cans. Like, you would drink a can and then look at the bottom of the can, and there'd be stuff printed on the bottom of a can.
Oh, wow. I don't remember those, to be fair.
I remember it was, like, embossed in the bottom of the can.
Ooh.
Like, these really insane promotions. I remember for Jurassic Park, you could win a trip found in, like, boxes of, like, Fruity Pebbles or something.
Oh, yeah.
But if you won, when you opened the box, a speaker would start playing to announce your victory. And I was like, that's just a weird device I want to find.
I mean, it was such an odd time for that kind of... Mm-hmm. Some laws have been enacted about marketing to kids, which is why a lot of this falls by the wayside. Yes. You still see whispers of it. Because I also remember, like, McDonald's and Burger King were on another level.
Oh, yes. They're, like, every major movie had toys, regardless of really who they were aiming at.
Batman Returns famously had some issues with their McDonald's toys.
Yes.
Because it turns out not all parents were amused by the fairly adult Batman Returns toys.
Yes. Because I know you could get the penguin on his, like, giant rubber duck.
Yeah, which looks on paper like a cool toy.
Looks very much like, oh, this is a kid's toy. That's probably why it's in the film. But then you had, like, Cindy Crawford, right? Cindy Crawford? No, Michelle Pfeiffer.
Michelle Pfeiffer!
Michelle Pfeiffer as Catwoman in this, like, skin-tight black latex with, like, the stitching.
She was the coolest person who had ever lived when I was 5.
Mm-hmm. But, changed me as a little boy.
I mean, I wanted to be her so badly.
I need to go back and watch all the Batman films again because, like, especially Returns. Returns is a bit of a blank spot in my brain.
I remember watching Returns a few years ago in a bar.
Yes, we did watch it in a bar recently.
We were super early.
Yes.
And we were supposed to go to a friend's, and we didn't want to be there super early.
Yeah, so we just stopped and we're like, we'll grab a drink, and they were watching Batman Returns. I was like, we might just stay here. So we did not watch all of Batman Returns, but we watched chunks of it. Beetlejuice was another one. Not the cartoon, but the film had toys.
That would have been the 80s.
Oh, you're right.
Jurassic Park.
Jurassic Park was another big one. Jurassic Park was one that, like, I remember to this day that not only did they have Happy Meal toys, or I think Burger King Kids Club toys, what they were called, they also had, like, toys for adults. You can go in there and get an adult meal, and for like $5, you got a cool watch.
Something has survived, and it's at Burger King. 4 collectible watches from the Lost World Jurassic Park. When you buy any tasty Burger King value meal, get a killer Lost World watch for only $1.99. They can only be sighted at Burger King. Collect all 4, just $1.99 with any value meal. Before time runs out.
It was like $1.99.
Oh, was it? Yeah, it was probably much cheaper. And I remember, like, one was a hologram of the T-Rex eye. That was the real cool one. And it was just like these fancy novelty watches.
Or like the glasses from Batman Forever.
Yes.
Like, they were these pretty nice glass mugs.
Yeah, you could go to McDonald's and you could buy these glass mugs. We have one from the Flintstones movie. Because
we have the Batman Forever ones.
I have the Flintstones one as well.
Oh, I was about to say, I got Batman Forever. I have nice things.
No, because the tie-in with McDonald's was so strong that McDonald's appears in the film. In the film, The Flintstones.
You're right.
And, like, the big joke is, in the 90s, one of the big advertising things for McDonald's was over 1 billion burgers sold. Yes. And in the Flintstone movie, it was like over 6 dozen sold because it was the start of time. But yeah, there was such synergy that, like, of course they had the McDonald's toys as well. And then they also sold these glasses. And yeah, the corporate synergy was so insane that I remember a commercial where they made fun of it.
Yeah.
Because it was like right after Godzilla came out, which would have been, what, 98? Yes. That they had...
Stick a pin in Godzilla. That's going to be my next point.
Okay, but I remember after that came out, seeing a commercial where they were like...
All right, people. What do you got?
Death Slug. Big lizards are out.
Nice. Action figure.
It's big, squishy, and it leaves a slime trail.
Nice. Kitty meal.
The slug taco. Put salt on it. It shrivels.
Nice. Music video?
We call it Slug Slide.
Nice. What else?
Slug slippers.
Nice.
Slug slush.
Nice.
Slug on a stick.
Nice. What about the movie?
Well, we don't have a script yet, but we can bang one out by Friday.
Nice.
And it was commentary on this is just how movies are made now.
The music's actually the point I wanted to make.
Go ahead.
With Godzilla is this was also a time period from like the late 80s, I would say, to the late 90s maybe early 2000s, where soundtracks were huge.
Yes.
And a lot of movies would have a true tie-in song where, like, the video was generally, in many cases, the video was clips from the movie intermixed with the singer singing on a thematically appropriate background.
Yes.
Like, I remember Kiss from a Rose from Batman Forever singing in front of the Bat Signal, intercut with scenes from Batman Forever.
Yes, with Nicole Kidman doing things.
And that was normal.
Yeah.
It wasn't every movie, but it was expected of your tentpoles.
Yeah.
Disney songs were just released as pop hits.
Yeah.
Like the big song from every Disney movie every year. I know Lion King was special because it had 2 radio hits.
Yeah.
Because the Elton John versions of Circle of Life and Can You Feel the Love Tonight were both like big radio airplay hits.
Mm-hmm.
But Godzilla had a unbelievably good soundtrack.
Yes.
The Wallflowers version of Heroes.
Yeah, that's a movie song.
That never had to go that hard. Mm-hmm. And then Will Smith, when he did anything, all of his summer tentpoles had their own song, except for Independence Day.
I had this idea I wanted to pitch to someone, because I couldn't do it, of just releasing a rap album about all the Will Smith movies that he didn't write a song about.
Okay.
Just being like, yeah, we're gonna get hitched. Oh, yeah. Like, oh, man, I can't really wait for this 8-pound song.
I was gonna say 7 pounds.
7 pounds, yeah. This is gonna be great.
Oof.
I think that's a really funny project. I'll reach out to Mega Ran.
But yeah, like that kind of synergy. Because one of my all-time favorite songs is Almost Unreal by Roxette. Mm-hmm. Which was it's the end credit song of 1993's Super Mario Brothers.
Yes.
And it was written for Hocus Pocus. Mm-hmm. And doesn't fit either film thematically.
Yeah, I can't play it here or I'll get copyright strikes, but spend some time to find that music video. I'll probably put it in the
I was about to say, and make sure you watch the video, because the video is ridiculous and is heavily Super Mario Brothers themed.
Yeah, and I know we've touched on this one already because we covered Space Jam 2, but the soundtrack to Space Jam was so good.
Never needed to go that hard.
For a Looney Tunes film.
Did not need to go that hard.
Yes, I owned that soundtrack. It was incredible.
Who didn't?
Yeah, really, honestly, who didn't in the 90s?
Like, that was one, I feel like everybody had that. It was also crazy, because if you look at, like, the highest grossing movies in a given year in the 90s, every single year of the 90s had banger after banger after banger.
Yes.
But fewer movies.
Yeah. There was just less movies. Movies would spend more time in the theaters.
Which also gave them the opportunity to become sleeper hits.
Yes.
Like, nowadays, I'm going to use Borderlands as an example. Borderlands did really badly.
Yes.
And was more or less pulled from theaters after 2 weeks. Because the way the deals are now, it didn't really behoove them to create more time for a movie to find an audience. Borderlands was never going to find an audience because it was bad. Mm-hmm. But there are definitely films. I'm thinking of even like a Scott Pilgrim.
Yeah.
That with a little more time in theaters might have been able to find that like My Big Fat Greek Wedding-esque.
Well, here's another...
That's early 2000s, but you get me.
Here's another thought, though. Like, the process of being in theaters was different. In that you had, like, your megaplexes like that we have now, where it's like, yeah, we have 12 screens. We can see all these movies. And then there were these little theaters that had 1 or 2 that would also get the movies later.
Yeah.
It's not on, like, VHS yet. And it's, like, not on, like, cable yet or anything like that. It's just out of the big theater and into a smaller theater.
Yeah, they were often very cheap.
Yes. Like, I remember there's a theater, it was just called the Eric Theater. And it was $3 movies. And it's like, let's go see whatever's at the Eric.
Because I remember the Cinnaminson movie theater. Was it one of those, and we used to call it the Dollar Theater.
Yeah. It was just like where you would see other movies, and like they wouldn't get it the week of release. Like after it had been in theaters for a month, maybe you could see it at like the small theater for cheaper. And like there was a theater that was, you know, a mile from my house that did a kids movie. Oh wow. I'm seeing some old pictures now. The theater would always do like a kids movie early in the day, and then an adult movie at night, and then at midnight, Rocky Horror Picture Show. Every single weekend.
I mean, to me, it's crushing because these theaters all kind of went out by the time I would have been old enough to want to go to Rocky Horror or the weird little theaters.
Yeah.
So like there's part of it that's very sad to me. I'm like, oh, I would have gone down to where you were living at the time to go see Rocky Horror in my teens.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think this might be a good way to segue into like the spaces we had.
Yes.
Because one thing I desperately want to talk about was the insanity that truly was DZ Discovery Zone.
And its ilk.
Yes.
Because there was Discovery Zone, Chuck E. Cheese, and then countless independent ones.
Yes. I remember one called like Totally Tubular.
Yes, I went to Totally Tubular as a child.
And if you don't know what this is, you may be familiar if you go to a McDonald's or a Chick-fil-A, that little play area.
Yes.
Where it's like these weird tubes and maybe a ball pit and like a twisty slide that you can kind of like run through. Maybe you've also like been to a carnival and like for 3 tickets you run through this thing and it's like, oh, you punch the punching bags and then you climb a cargo net and then you go down a slide. DZ Discovery Zone was that, but it was 3 stories tall and the size of a house.
Yeah.
Like
the size of a big house.
The size of a big house of just tubes to crawl in.
Mm-hmm. Ball pits.
Nets. Slides. Like just all off in different directions. Like I remember there just being a net room where like the whole room was just made of nets.
Yes.
And you had to like climb up.
It was very Legends of the Hidden Temple.
Yeah, find holes to get through. And as a child, you would crawl on your hands and knees through these tubes because you, as a child, could not stand up. It's not like it was big enough for a child to stand, which means there is no room for an adult
Absolutely
in this thing. Which means if you were at DZ Discovery Zone and your parent said it's time to go, you could disappear in this 3-story tube maze and just not be seen for an hour.
Yup.
And what are they going to do? Chase me? I'd love to see that.
They also all had like arcades.
Yes.
And that spewed tickets that you could trade for crap.
Yeah.
And I just remember like my mom would take me to Chuck E. Cheese. We'd get a pizza.
Mm-hmm.
She'd get like an iced tea that had free refills. And she'd sit in a booth and read and just send me out to make my fortunes. And I had to check in every 20 minutes.
Yeah.
But like, I want to emphasize to you how young I was when I was being sent into the world to make my fortune.
Yeah.
I was like 6.
Yeah. You're like 5, 6 years old.
Being sent into the world.
Just like, good luck. And I remember, and
if you don't come back within 20 minutes, we don't stop at the bookstore at the end.
I really want to stress this. I'm pretty sure it was 3 stories tall. Like, I know I was smaller then, so maybe it wasn't this high. But I remember the DZ Discovery Zone roly-poly slide. It was a sliding board made out of rotating bars. So when you would sit on it, it was like going down a slide that was also a conveyor belt.
Yes.
And like all you did was pick up speed. Because the thing you were sitting on rolled.
Yeah.
And I just remember being so high up that like you picked up a lot of speed on this thing.
Yeah, you did.
I also remember the big like really fun area was where you held onto a thing and it would slide across.
Oh, the little like zip line you do.
Yeah, and there was like always a guy there that was like, okay, now it's your turn. Like that was the only place where an adult was.
And when we say adult,
yeah, I mean,
gentle listener, this person was 16.
16-year-old who got bullied into getting a job. And the other thing I remember is we would like kind of go around and for some reason there was always this like weird brown stuff that was in these tubes. And we'd go, brown stuff, and we'd wipe it, and we'd go across. It was poop. There was just poop in these things.
I have no recollection of interacting with the poop. I think I was like, oh, I'm not touching whatever that is. It smelled bad.
But yeah, these were Petri dishes of just absolute horrible disease. Like, it was all plastic. Like, it's not like after it was over, someone went in there with bleach and a rag to just wipe down the tube. Like, it was just that way forever. And like peeing in a pool, people would pee in the ball pit.
Oh, yeah, people. I'm going to be honest. I never went to the bathroom in a totally tubular in a place I oughtn't to.
Yeah, nor have I. But, like, I just remember as a child, I'd show up and be excited for the ball pit, and the ball pit would be closed for some reason, and they were throwing buckets of water in it. And that was it.
A clue, Sherlock.
That was the cleaning. Like, there was no removing of the balls and cleaning the balls. It was, once you've thrown enough buckets of water in it, it was assumed to be cleaned.
I'm going to be on, like, thinking about it as an adult, I can't believe we're ever allowed for layers of reasons. 1, disgusting.
Yeah.
2, sent off to make your fortunes in the world.
And 3, like, the big thing to me is, I don't know how I ever left. Because I loved them so much. Like, there was always one that was like a rocket ship, and you would try to find that one, and then you'd be like, I'm riding the rocket ship, yeah. And, like, once you're in, there's no getting you out.
Yeah, I remember being pretty good about leaving. There was a bookstore next to the Chuck E. Cheese where I grew up, and it turns out I was bribable.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I could be convinced for the low, low price of an Archie comic or a puzzle book to leave. Come on, get your tickets, go turn them in to the bored 15-year-old who has to give you, like, 3 Jolly Ranchers and a Chuck E. Cheese sticker. And these were wild places.
This also, like, there was also an arcade. That's an important thing to bring up.
Yeah.
Because you weren't allowed to wear your shoes in the tunnels.
Right.
So this led to when you got out to, like, play arcade games, you sprinting full speed in socks on carpet.
Yeah, you were just in your stocking feet all the time.
Yeah, and, like, I remember just wiping out horribly many times at Chuck E. Cheese and Discovery Zone. Just because, like, I had to get to the, Daytona USA game. Daytona. So, yeah, that is a spot that should probably stay doomed. But
I will love it all my days.
I will love it forever. And now it is one of the most popular things to make a horror game out of.
Yeah.
Are these weird, brightly covered plastic tubes.
I'm figuring those are all made by people who to study infectious diseases. All these games are made by epidemiologists.
Yeah.
See how I bought myself time to remember the word epidemiologist?
Yeah, that was very well done. You sounded very intelligent.
Very demure, very mindful.
Yes.
Now if you're listening to this in like 2025 and 2026, you can tell me within a week of when we recorded this.
Any other like spaces you can think of that went away forever? Because there's a big one we got to bring up.
I'm trying to think of spaces that went away forever, or spaces that are just changed beyond repair.
Yes.
Because this is a little more 2000s, but late 90s, was arcades and skate parks and just stuff in the mall.
Yes.
Like, malls still exist to an extent, but malls used to, like, have other stuff.
It used to be very kid-friendly where, like, you could go to the mall with $10 and spend the day there and do stuff.
Yeah.
And still have some change by the time you left.
I never had change by the time I left because I was like, oh, guess I'm buying a milkshake.
You go to the food court. Like, this is something that...
$1 will buy you some crap at Claire's.
Yeah. You could go to Sam Goody or a Suncoast.
Or the Wall.
And, like, there was just headphones playing music. And
yeah.
You could put on some headphones that someone else had been wearing and just listen to music for a little bit. Just like, oh, let me try this out. Let me just see what's jamming here. The mall was like a magical place where you could do anything. I hung out at the arcade a lot. And I need to bring up this story.
I tried to talk to boys at the skate park. That was more the 2000s.
Yeah, skate park was cool, though. I remember that.
Had DDR.
Had DDR, which I spent a lot of my time on, which was in the 2000s, but I was still, could cut a rug in DDR.
We're going to end up having to do a 2000s episode now.
Maybe.
Y2K is so hot right now.
I also want to bring up the idea of an electronics store.
Yes.
And, like, I know Best Buy exists still.
Barely.
But I remember fondly going to these two places. One was called American Electronics, and the other was called Silo.
Oh.
And they sold, like, TVs, VCRs, refrigerators, and stereo equipment. And my dad was a big stereo guy. So I would, like...
So was my dad.
Yeah. Like,
dads were stereo guys in the 90s.
In the 90s, the idea of having a really good stereo... Because, like, we were making the jump to CDs from, like, vinyl and cassettes that, like, you could really kind of turn into a DJ really easily.
Yeah.
Kind of like how anyone can have a TV studio and do stuff on YouTube. Anyone could have, like, a really good DJ setup.
Yeah.
Because I know my dad has a 24-disc CD changer.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
We had 6. Your dad beating us.
And I remember the joys of going to these stores because they would always have a Nintendo or a Super Nintendo on display.
Ooh.
And you could sit down and just play it. And I didn't have a Super Nintendo. So I remember, especially for American Electronics, we were going a lot. I don't know why, but I would just like sit there and play the Super Nintendo that they had and just kept playing Super Mario World.
Like the first level, because it was like a demo.
And I don't remember if... I kind of remember it would reset after a minute. So you couldn't save or anything. And I remember our TV broke. And my dad had to go to American Electronics to buy a new TV. And he bought the TV that had the Super Nintendo hooked up to it. Like, he bought the floor model.
Oh, my God.
And my dad said, I'll take it, but you got to throw in the Super Nintendo. And they did. And I got a Super Nintendo for free.
And it was the best day.
It was the best day ever. I still have that Super Nintendo.
You do.
It survived through a fire.
It did. Oh, you know what? Another place I gotta bring up that doesn't exist anymore, but like I spent many hours of my childhood. There was a store. There were more stores for kids with kids stuff.
Yeah.
And one of these stores was a place called Zany Brainy.
Oh yeah.
And I may have technically had squatters' rights in our local St. Brainy.
Yeah.
My parents would again leave me places to make my fortune. And they would go grocery shopping because it was next to a grocery store and leave their 8-year-old daughter in the St. Brainy to play backyard baseball on the computer and fend for herself.
I don't think I've ever been in a Zany Brady. I kind of remember them existing.
Oh, God. They sold Beanie Babies, Sanrio. They had computer games and books. They were a very educational toy.
Okay.
But man, I was the kid who I loved Zany Brainy. If you were like, we can go to Toys R Us or we can go to Zany Brainy, I would almost always choose Zany Brainy unless a movie had just come out and I wanted a movie toy. Because I was obsessed with movies in the 90s. I think I've told this story on mic before.
Yeah.
That I used to literally read the newspaper every Sunday morning, just the entertainment section. I couldn't really I wasn't fully fathoming what I was reading because I could read the words, but I was very young.
Right.
But I knew how to translate how big or small the ads were. And I knew, if it's playing at these movie theaters, it's an art movie.
Oh, wow.
It's not a regular movie. I have a strong memory of Like Water for Chocolate and being like, that's an art movie. It's only playing at Ritz and Ritz at the Bourse. Why does a 6-year-old know that? Or a 5-year-old? I don't know how old I was when that movie came out, but I was very young. And I could also see over time a movie's ad getting smaller and disappearing.
Yeah.
And clocking that as a kid.
Mm-hmm.
And if I was really good, my dad would buy the New York Times, where the good ads were.
Oh.
If I was passable, it was the Philadelphia Inquirer.
I also want to bring up, besides Toys R Us, of course, is a big one that we had that is no longer around, unless it's connected to a JCPenney's, kind of.
Yeah.
It's not the joy of a Toys R Us.
It's really not. I went to look for something there for my nephew, and it's not the same.
Yeah, just toys for miles. But the big one I have to bring up is, of course, Blockbuster. There's just something about walking through those aisles and being like, these are where the new releases are. Those are the scary movies over there. We avoid that section.
No, you go and you read every box of all of these movies that you're too scared to watch. But you read every one of those boxes. You learn. I read every one of those boxes.
Oh, really?
Yeah, for some reason, I would go to the horror section and read all the boxes.
See, I think
Where were my parents?
My parents were like, don't look at scary movies, you'll be scared. There's also the super scary movies behind that curtain in the plus 18 section. That's where the real scary movies are. Don't look back there. They're really scary. They're only for adults.
I think I'm realizing that my dad told me the truth about what was back there, kind of. He was like, they're boring. They're kissing movies.
Ah, there you go.
And as a kid, you're like, oh, ew. So all the allure was gone. I was like, ew, they're kissing movies. Bye. Because I didn't like romantic movies at that time in my life. So he could just tell me I think he gave me it's like that movie your mom likes and named some sort of that Sleepless in Seattle movie your mom likes. Movies like that. Sleepless in Seattle's only out here because everybody likes Tom Hanks. Which is something he could say to me and I'd be like, oh yeah.
Oh yeah, I saw that ad. But
I was such a weird little kid.
Yeah, so was I.
You could also you could sub out Blockbuster for your neighborhood mom and pop place.
Which is where I mostly went. I went to West Coast Video for a little bit, and then we had a late fee on a Pac-Man game that I had rented, and we're never going back. But that's a specific experience that I wanted to bring up here.
My ambition when I was a little girl was to work in a video store.
Oh yeah, me too.
I wanted that. I was like, when I'm old enough, I'm gonna work in the video store. And my dad was like, okay.
Yeah. It seems so great, the idea of just watching movies all day and talking films and selling kids Skittles. But this is an experience that you will never have anymore. This was a strictly 90s experience. And that's going to a video store and renting a video game. And I distinctly remember the day that they started carrying Super Nintendo games and screaming, being like, "Oh, there's games here now!"
Oh my god.
And, like, I didn't know anything, and, like, didn't know how things work, so I just rented all of them. There's something about the experience of renting a video game, starting it up and trying it out, and having someone else's save file there.
Oh, that's weird.
And just being like, okay, let me play this game. I'm pretty good at video games. All right, I died at level 3. Getting kicked back to the like loading scene and being like, huh, this save file's on level 5. And like seeing stuff that I could never get to myself.
Leading you to a treasure you could not attain.
Or if you were really lucky, I have a couple memories of this happening, where a lot of earlier Nintendo games, you had to have a battery in your game for a save file, and those were expensive. So instead, there were a lot of video games worked on passwords. Like if you could get to level 3, you knew that XYXXY got you to level 3. And if you were real lucky, you would rent a game and someone had gotten that far and written it in the instruction manuals for you.
Oh.
So you can look through it and be like, oh crap, we're jumping right to level 3.
What? That's the real MVP.
Yeah, that stuff specifically, where it was like, this is a person I never know and will never know, but they got me to level 3 in Captain Planet and the Planeteers, which was a terrible game. But like I distinctly remember going, oh, look, we could do this. We could see more of the game. And I think that's also an experience that people don't have anymore of like, yeah, there's just games that you couldn't beat, so you just never got to see what happened.
Yeah.
Because they were hard. And when you died, you started over.
Yeah, I mean, I loved it. Because I remember we had West Coast Video, and then we had another, like Star something video. Like Starcourt Video or something.
Mm-hmm.
And my dad was like a frequent flyer at the video store. Like we were there every single week, sometimes twice a week. And like I remember their kids section. I can see it still. Yeah. I can see standing under the Robert Downey Jr. Chaplin poster. And like looking through the kids' movies. And one day it was my birthday the next day. Mm-hmm. And my dad was chatting with the guy and he was like, oh yeah, I'm letting her pick something out for her birthday. And the guy was like, I got something for her. Aladdin wasn't supposed to come out for another 3 days.
Yeah.
But it had come in already. So they let us break street date and I brought it to school. And we watched.
You were supposed to tell anybody.
Oh no, he didn't care. And we watched it because they were like, well, we can watch the movie we plan to watch, or Laura has Aladdin. Which, gentle friends, the window between theater and video was like nearly a year back then.
Yes.
So like Aladdin, you hadn't seen Aladdin in months. So obviously all of the other first graders were like, Aladdin, don't be silly. So like I got to be like, yeah, I'm cool, I have Aladdin. But like that little mom and pop store, think about it, that was 30 years ago. Mm-hmm. I don't know what happened to that store, and I don't know what happened to those people.
Yeah.
But I remember that story.
Yeah, I also had a relationship with my local video store guy, John Claude. And,
oh, you knew a name. I knew. Thank you, Mr. Video Store Man.
John Claude was the best because he would give us screeners.
Ooh.
So, like, we would rent it and pay for it, but then we'd take it home and it would say, like, every once in a while across the bottom it says, this is not for rental. And the screen would go, like, black and white. But, like, I don't care. I got to see Heavyweight while it was still in theaters.
Yeah.
And John Claude was very French. And he was obsessed with, like, fixing his store so it was perfect. So, like, every time you went in there, he was like, everything was in a different position. Now he had a pinball machine.
Oh.
He's like, you want to play pinball?
And
Yeah,
you were
we
like,
played pinball.
yes, sir.
And then you'd leave, and then you'd come back, and he'd be like, I sold the pinball machine, now I sell Pogs. You want some Pogs?
And you're like, I do.
I do want Pogs. You remember Pogs, guys? Those were supposed to be worth money at some point in life.
There are some in this house.
Pogs?
Yes.
Really?
Yes.
Do you have a slammer?
Yes.
Do you want to play Pogs?
No.
Oh.
Because I'm not sure where they are. There's somewhere in this house a bag of Power Rangers Pogs.
Yeah. If you don't know, if none of that sentence made sense to you, and we're way over time, so I'll explain this quickly. Pogs were little circular pieces of cardboard with a picture of a thing you liked on it. If it was really cool, it was it had like sharp edges.
Oh, yeah.
And it was called like a slicer or something. What were those called? In any case, you then had a slammer, which was a metal or plastic, if you didn't have good slammers, piece, a little circle thing with a picture you liked on it. And then you'd go to school and you'd stack your Pogs on top of one another with a friend. And then you'd throw your slammer at it. And anyone that landed face up, you got to keep. You got to keep those. And it also greatly damaged your Pogs because you were throwing a metal object at cardboard. And then your friend would end up with your favorite Pog, and then you wouldn't talk to them anymore. Even though you lost fair and square, but you really liked the Green Ranger, and they shouldn't have that one.
I'm going to be honest. We never played keepsies. We traded.
Yeah, trading was a big part of it.
Trading cards were huge, too.
Yes, I was never big in the trading cards beyond Pokemon, but...
But, like, I remember every movie and TV show had trading cards.
Oh, yes, absolutely.
Oh, man.
Yeah, you getting filled with that good nostalgia?
Yeah. I'm going to go watch Roundhouse, y'all.
Yeah. So we're about an hour 15 in. I had some stuff I wanted to say about music, but this has become a long enough episode, I think.
This might be a two-parter.
Do you want to talk more about the 90s?
Because I really wanted to talk about, like, just general lifestyle, which we didn't really get to talk about much.
Yeah, we didn't get to talk about much about lifestyle, fashion. I had some stuff I wanted to say about music. We did get to talk about DZ Discovery Zone.
Important.
But needless to say, we're kind of in a hectic time.
Yes.
So we may not have time to watch stuff. So you know what? We'll leave it up to the Discord.
Yeah.
Let us know in the Discord if you want us to do a pilot or if you'd like us to do more 90s chat.
Yeah.
Just to mix things up. Because I will say that a couple people from our Discord and from our old Patreon really do miss the Tune Out episodes.
Really?
Yeah, they were like a fun little distraction from when we couldn't do Stay Doomed because of the writer's strike. So, maybe we'll do another one of these. Maybe we'll get back to some Stay Doomed classic. It's up to you. We do this for you guys, so we hope that you enjoy these things.
Yeah, thank you for bearing with us. Things are very, very tumultuous right now.
Ooh, man, you got lots of good words on this one.
In the 90s, in the car, I listened to Word Smart vocabulary tapes with my mom.
Hell yeah.
Because my mom wanted to make sure I didn't have friends until college.
Yes.
So...
But yes, so this has just been a look back into the 90s.
This has been fun, actually.
This has been a lot of fun, yeah. This has been rejuvenating. I feel good. So thank you so much for joining us for another edition of Stay Doomed. Be sure to join the Discord and weigh in your opinion on what we want to do next and, chat with us about anything and everything. Where can people find us?
You can email us at thestaydoomedshow@gmail.com or on Facebook and Twitter at Stay Doomed.
And if you want to talk to me about your adventures at DZ Discovery Zone, I'm at +2 Comedy on Twitter and TV's Noah on Instagram.
If you made it a point to get the little catalog every week or month that the video store put out and collected them and hoarded them like a dragon... I am at Priorities on Twitter and at Glitter and Glow Tape on Instagram. Also, if you have them, scan them. Send them to me. TheStayDoomedShow@gmail.com. Love you, bye.